Silent Bomber. What a game. This is a video game that takes itself pretty seriously.
These people are civilians!
And yet has some of the most over-the-top villains.
Then which player is going to be fortunate enough to checkmate fate, I wonder?
A peculiar script and voice acting. And is loaded with cliches.
I regret nothing!
And it is fantastic. This must be the quintessential example of a really over-the-top 1990s PlayStation game, and it's an absolute joy to play. I would recommend starting the game with a tutorial, as it isn't long and it's fun. Here, our protagonist, Utah, blows up some enemies, thinking he's entering a military stronghold. To his horror, he finds out that he's in a civilian area, but is still commanded to kill everyone. Being a genetically altered soldier, he has no choice but to comply.
That's an order.
Understood, sir.
Pretty dark stuff, but this game does seem to be trying to tell a story, and if you look past the cheesy voice acting and some other minor flaws, it is enjoyable. So that's the tutorial over, and now the main game begins. 7 years after Utah is told to kill those civilians, a huge spaceship called the Dante is on a mission to destroy a peaceful planet called Hornet, because Hornet's people refuse to be ruled by an evil group called the Planet's Union of Justice. In a desperate attempt to stop the Dante, a team is sent up to infiltrate the ship and destroy it. Utah joins the battle because fighting for good causes is the only way he feels he can redeem himself for his past. However, one of the group is a traitor. I wonder who?
Excuse me. So we're merely pawns in some elaborate game that will determine the fate of the world, is that it? Then which player is going to be fortunate enough to checkmate fate, I wonder?
Definitely not that guy. He seems trustworthy. Anyway, somebody has double-crossed the team because all of a sudden the Dante is blasting the hell out of the group's shuttle. Utah is forced to abandon ship and thus the game begins. Silent Bomber is an arcadey shoot-'em-up game, but with your attack being bombs. You can either place them on the ground or fire them to lock onto enemies, depending on the situation. You can also collect E-chips, which are power-ups, increasing the amount of bombs you can fire or place. Placing bombs on top of each other creates a stack.
Stack?
Which can be used to cause more damage to your enemies and faster, and speed is something you'll need in this game. It's incredibly fast-paced. Your enemies will attack with laser beams, missiles, and these awful laser balls. I swear, these balls will be the bane of your life when you're playing Silent Bomber. They cost you a great deal of health, they follow you for ages, and in later stages, they're absolutely everywhere. Luckily, the controls in this game are very tight and easy to learn. Planting bombs soon becomes second nature, and it's really addictive. Like smashing crates in Crash Bandicoot, it's very satisfying blowing stuff up in this game. You can also destroy 2 enemies at once if they're near each other, and this adds to the sense of satisfaction you get from the game, and makes the gameplay more rewarding. By pressing X twice, you can do a fast jump forward. This is useful for covering ground quickly, and essential later in the game for avoiding enemy fire. Sometimes, you'll have to be going balls to the wall to avoid balls. With bad controls, this would be really frustrating. But you don't have that problem with Silent Bomber, and when you do die, you blame yourself, not the controls. Or the stupid enemies firing out these balls. Look at this. So as you progress through the game, it's definitely worth collecting E-chips, as not only do these allow you to deploy more bombs and deal more damage to your foes, they also upgrade the range you can shoot bombs at and increase your shield. There are also data chips, which give you more characters to choose from when you play in the game's virtual arena. This is a bonus minigame. It's effectively a deathmatch, and the more data chips you collect, the more characters you'll be able to play. Overall, it's a fun addition, especially when you play against friends. Finally, there are liquids, which, when deployed, can deal greater damage to your enemies, or get you out of tight situations. Napalm liquid creates fire when detonated, gravity liquid sucks your enemies into a mini vortex, and paralyzed liquid temporarily paralyzes your enemies. The game encourages the player to be creative by choosing for themselves which liquid they think might be most useful in any given situation. There are no rules regarding which liquid you can use and when, so you're left to use these weapons in your own style, giving you more freedom and more satisfaction when your strategy pays off. So these collectibles are a good example from a game that rewards you properly for fully exploring levels and collecting items. They really are worth looking for, because the liquids, or the extra bomb, can certainly save you in tight situations. As you travel further into the Dante, Utah's cold and hollow personality begins to be tested, as he has to begin choosing whether to destroy the Dante as fast as possible or take longer and deviate from his mission in order to protect his crew. And eventually we begin to understand Utah a bit more and connect with his character.
Proud. I have never taken pride in killing or destruction.
One thing that I did find quite amusing is the fact that Utah's surname is Fate. So our main character is called Utah Fate. I mean, surely only in the 90s could a video game have a lead character called Utah Fate and still act as if it's taking itself really seriously. And what's more, when you realise Utah's surname is Fate, this quote takes on a whole nother meaning.
Then which player is going to be fortunate enough to checkmate fate, I wonder?
I mean, come on, who would say that to a bunch of people they're about to betray? I mean, way to give the game away. Anyway, this game has some pretty entertaining boss fights. The androids and robots sent to fight you always look great, and it's interesting to see what the Dante will throw at you next. These battles are enjoyable and do require some strategy. Some fights, like against this giant spider, are very difficult without napalm liquid, so it's definitely worth keeping a few of each liquids in reserve for the boss fights. The Dante's main fighting force are these androids called hard shells. Some only have guns, some have lightsabers, and some are more powerful than others. But by far the most powerful are Blue Mist, and they are only sent out when you really cheese the Dante off.
Since you haven't eliminated these intruders yet, I have no choice. I can't believe it's gotten to this. I'll have to send out our strongest unit, dispatch scrambled orders to Blue Mist.
Who even is this guy? I mean, you see him all the time in these cutscenes, but it never actually explains who he is. Oh well. And so Blue Mist make their epic entrance. Oh well, they can't be that bad. I mean, what could possibly be worse than laser balls? Blistering balls! I hate these giant balls. They won't stop dangling around until you blow them up. The soundtrack for Blue Mist is really good. The whole game has a 1990s techno futuristical style sound. It's not as epic as Spyro the Dragon or Crash 2's soundtrack, but it's definitely above average. As far as suiting the game goes, it has to be one of the best matches to the visuals and gameplay I've seen in a game. It complements the action and is definitely good at setting a mood. The main problem I have with Silent Bomber is that it's impossible for me to finish the game. That's not because it's too hard, it's because every time I get to this boss, after the battle the game freezes up. It's happened on my PS1 and PS3. I even bought another copy of the game and had the same problem. It does seem to be an issue that only affects the PAL version. Here the North American version doesn't have the same problem. So for me, this is where the game ends. No matter how many times I've tried, I cannot get past this stage. This glitch really is a crying shame because it stops a really unique and creative game from really reaching its full potential. In conclusion, I think Silent Bomber is a lot of fun, definitely an above average PlayStation 1 game. If you're in North America, I would definitely recommend you go for it. If you're in the PAL region, I'd still recommend the game, but be warned, the last few levels will be cut off. It's still hours of fun, but the glitch at the end is a disappointment and it stops you from truly enjoying the game. I think it's high time Silent Bomber was released on the PlayStation Network without all the glitches, so everyone can enjoy this classic PlayStation 1 game. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is Johnny Powell signing out.